Hello, 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 everybody out there, good people, good people. This is Jay Jones, and I do not express the interest of what's going on with ATR platform. This is my own view, my own viewpoints alone. And so I want that stress between you and them. I did put that on the screen at the beginning of the meeting, and I'll make sure it's stressed that these are my viewpoints and my viewpoints alone. I'm asking y'all, encouraging y'all, begging y'all go out there and share, share, share. Angela Simmons, how you doing today? Let's make sure we share, share, share. I took off last week. Um, I had a couple of things I had to take care of on a Friday, in and out of town. So I wasn't here last Friday. So I'm back here in the studio, which is really my den, aka kitchen table. I'm here in the studio, getting everything rolling all together for y'all, good people, to have a good conversation amongst us, good people. I'm asking you to go out there and share, 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 share. You know how I do the first 3 or 4 minutes. I just want to go ahead and do what I got to do to build an audience. And so, what I'm doing next is I'm going to take my cell phone while we're getting the motions together and make sure we share this piece right here. It's so important for us to make sure we share, 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 share. If those people don't tune off, don't cut off, make sure you share, share, share. Get involved in this conversation. Let's know, let's talk, let's do what we got to do. I'm talking to Democrats, I'm talking to Republicans, I'm talking to black, I'm talking to white, I'm talking to all the people in the world. Share, 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 making sure we understand that we're getting the message out there, getting the message clear out to our community. All my good people stand up. I got my African attire on today because Lazaretto Day over there on Tybee Island, Lazaretto Day, and I learned something special, something kind on Lazaretto Day. Lazaretto Day should be celebrated across any kind of port city where slaves were brought in from Africa, and Lazaretto Day was celebrated here in my community, Chatham County community, right there in Tybee Island, and we celebrated Lazaretto Day. We had a beautiful celebration, beautiful ceremony. I hope somebody took the time to videotape that. I made sure I took Johannes down there with me, and we got to hear some great tributes to the African American situation that actually landed on the coast here in America. It was a tribute, but it was a reminder for us to remember that we have a haunted history, but a history we want to keep in the back of our minds and in the forefront of our thought process to make sure that we remind people that yes, we may have come from slavery. Yes, we may have come from bondage, but we do not have to live in bondage. We do not have to be a slave mentality in 2022. We can be free in 2022. And I encourage my brothers and my sisters to make sure we stay free as far as everything is concerned. I wish and I hope and I pray that I can come on this platform and actually talk in conversation without having to be disparaging or in any kind of negative kind of conversation or platform where I can just come here, educate, build, and make it a presence known within our community that we can share knowledge, share understanding. If I can enlighten somebody, that'll be a blessing in this world. If I can learn from somebody, that'll be a great helpsake in this world as well. I wish we can just share, share, share. Let's make sure we got there and we stay focused as far as what our narrative is concerned, and we get out there and we build bridges among ourselves. And so, with that being said, we've hit the 5 minute mark, and that leaves me with 45 minutes to actually have a good conversation, 5 minutes to close it out, and for us to go ahead and celebrate where we need to be going at moving forward. And so, if you live in Chatham County, the kids will be out of school all next week. I saw not too many programs being advertised, so I wish the best of luck, the best of hope for everything, because there will be a lot of kids that will be hitting the streets of Chatham County, Savannah, Georgia, Pooler, Tybee Out, and all those other good places. Me and my family, as far as me and my house, we will be on vacation, so we will probably go out there under yonder and do something out there in America, because we're not going to go travel overseas, but we'll do something localized within the United States of America and making sure we do something that's educational and informative to my child who is always the building block, what we always want to concentrate all our efforts on, and making sure that Johannes is smarter than what he is, not dumber than what he is when he come back from spring break, because it's so important that we build the building blocks within those small minds. So when their small minds become big minds, they become public antidotes to the problems that we have persist in our community. And so that's so very important for me to make sure we do that. And so that's what we'll be doing. Me and my wife have already planned she's the planner of the household. I'm just the driver of the vehicle. And so she's planned a fantabulous vacation for us to be able to go out there and do some exploratory driving around within the United States of America to make sure we get everything we need knowledge-wise, knowledge-based within our confines. This week has been a very, 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 very different week as far as what goes on in the life of Jay Jones. Like I said earlier, Lazaretto Day was celebrated today. I learned some about the history about slavery and the import of slavery brought into America, how we were commerce and all the good stuff like that. Sung some old spiritual Negroes, and we went and came back home from Tybee Island and made our way back to the crib. Outside of that, a couple of other events that happened that transpired this week. Yesterday, if you live in Chatham County, yesterday I was featured in the news about a dialogue about crime, something I've been working on about 5-6 years, and I'm trying to get all my projects out of the attic and into the forefront, so we can make sure we address these problems and press these situations, so we can actually do better as far as what our community deserves within the structure and the confines about of how we actually maneuver around in our society. And so we talked about crime. And I like to always remind us when we talk about the word crime. Crime is a byproduct. It's not an infection, but it's a byproduct of the situation scenario that exists in our community. Crime, in its holistic state of mind, it is not something people just wake up and just, hey man, I want to commit crime. Something created that narrative to move that narrative toward crime being prevalent in our community, especially in African American, Black and brown communities. Crime is something that's attributed to, whether it's lack of food, lack of understanding, lack of housing, lack of something, or even if it's a lack of education, a lack of mentality, a lack of a structure, it's something lacking that actually creates crime. And so that's why I always tend to say crime is a byproduct of something that we have not put close attention to fix a narrative within our confines of our community. And so I stress in African American communities, when we talk about crime being a byproduct of something, the housing situation, how somebody grows up in a housing situation can be a product of what's going on crime. I think you having too much can become a byproduct of creating the crime scenario. Somebody has too much growing up, and then guess what? When they become an adult and they're able to make modern decisions and everything like that moving forward, they become criminals because they don't have the resources, nor do they have the avenues to be able to generate those opportunities for them to be able to have the kind of lifestyle they grew up with. That can be a pathway into what creates crime. And so I think that crime is, like I said, a byproduct of not having something or being inadequate of something. And so, I even talk about how crime is a byproduct of the housing market, and the housing market is a byproduct of how politics is governed in certain areas. And so when you have bad structure or bad leadership in certain areas or bad government structures, then you can have the byproduct of bad housing situations, bad schools, bad everything around the sun, which would enable the system of creating a high structure of crime within communities. And so I stress these conversations because it's so important, it's so prevalent that we're not scared to have candid conversations about what manipulates or what factors create crime in our community. And so that's been my stressful point. I've been on the news this week, stressing the fact that we need to do everything we possibly can to reduce crime. Now, I know y'all get tired of me hearing me say this same stuff over and over and over and over again. But the reason why I say it over and over and over again, because somewhere down the line, we got to catch it and we got to work it, and then we got to move it into the narrative where crime will start to be able to be reduced in our society. And poor Kim spoke also. Okay. Hey, Jay, was Van Johnson at the press conference today at the port? Kemp spoke, also others. And yes, I heard about that in reference to the press conference that was, I think, is dealing with some tax credits and stuff like that going on with the port. But going back to crime, it's a byproduct of the situation and what we do to fix it. I think that I learned a long time ago that we can talk about crime. We can talk about those elected officials who predicate or push the narrative of crime and associate crime and kind of create that narrative of crime, or we could do what we can to create solution based results to make sure we alleviate and moderate against crime. So now, I hear this all the time with Jay. You live in a nice house, nice neighborhood, nice lifestyle. You didn't come from that kind of lifestyle where you wouldn't even understand how crime is, crime relates, and everything like that. And yes, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't. I don't. But does that make me an evil person? Does it mean that only people who come from those situations will understand how to come up with remedies to fix the problem? No, I don't agree with that either. I think that I've been around with enough people that I can groom an association or assimilation with some people where we can actually make an adjustment of having a candid conversation about how we can reduce those situations in our community to make it better for other people in our society. And so I do want to stress the fact that crime, and I say this 1,000 times over and over and over again, that if we really want to reduce crime, if we really want to reduce the issues within our community, we have to have a better core structure within our leadership structure as far as who governs us. And this is not just a localized situation tied to Savannah, Georgia, Chatham County, or anything local community within our community or confines. This is a national conversation where if we really want to address crime, then we need government structure, whether it be federal, whether it be state, whether it be local, county, or municipality. We need to start having more legislature come from those those government structures to make sure that they do everything they possibly can to fix the situation as far as how they can help with economics, how they can help with housing, how they can help with better policing in our community, how they can help with better infrastructure design, how they can help with creating opportunities of entrepreneurship, creating opportunities of better sound government, taking policies like the infrastructure bill, where now we're having an opportunity to invest millions and millions, billions of dollars, if you look at it from a federal scene, billions of dollars back into this economy. But then we're not taking those billions of dollars that was influx back into the economy and creating narratives of jobs and wealth among minority communities or minority business partners. I mean, these are ways you can fix crime, because what you're doing in essence is you're taking a opportunity to create a stimulus check. And I know y'all hate that creepy word, stimulus check, but stimulus check is just what it is. It's something that stimulates or it's a stimulant to actually make the environment work, sound, and better for itself. And so when you're looking at these structures, you're looking at these situations, if we're not doing what we can to stimulate or put a stimulus to the environment, we're going to continue to suffer from crime, especially when it comes to Black and brown people, especially when it comes to impoverished people, especially when it comes to those situations where they don't understand the law, don't know how the law works. And then even when you talk to school systems, man, making sure school systems are looking at a better solution to reduce dropout rate, and I talk about it all the time. Dropout rate is probably one of the most horrendous rates we can ever promote or actually look at. But guess what? When you hide it and you don't bring it up to the forefront and talk about it, and my thing is more and more places across the United States of America are not talking about dropout rates, because dropout rates adversely affects African American populations, Black and brown communities. And my thing is, when you keep hiding those dropout rates, and states like the state of Georgia, where you can drop out at the age of 16 without even having your parents' consent, then you have bigger issues out there to bargain with. Because you know what? If a kid is retained 2 times, then the likelihood of him dropping out when he turns 16 is greater. And so what are we doing? And I think someone said it at our meeting the other day. What are we doing to reduce the issues related to crime? What are we doing to make the situation even better for when it comes to the community, as far as addressing, acknowledging, and fixing the problem when it comes to crime? Because my thing is, if you're not willing to even have a candid conversation about how housing affects crime, or how healthcare affects crime, how food deserts and having the ability to buy food, or even having those resources in the community where they're walkable, they're obtainable. These things actually affect us. Even when you create hub zones in African American communities, and hub zones are designed by federal, state, and local government to stimulate economics. But at the same time, when you're stimulating economics, you're removing populations out of one community and put one community and put them into a different community. And so having these candid conversations is very, very, very important, y'all. If we're not willing to have a dialogue amongst ourselves first, and that was the purpose of what we did yesterday. We had a dialogue. We wanted to have a discussion. I didn't want to have a germane conversation where I controlled the narrative and have a panel group of people where we controlled the narrative and we dictated the terms about what was discussed. What we wanted was an interactive conversation where we talked about the issues related to crime. And that's why it's so important for us to have an interrelationship conversation where both parties are actually discussing. It's not just me up there as a moderator and dictating the terms to an audience. No. What we did was we allowed the audience to have a round robin discussion, and we had candid conversations. And then what I did was I took those candid conversations, I wrote those points down, and then we'll elaborate on them things. And the thing, what I've learned a long time ago was consistency. The next piece is consistency. We will be consistent about having those meetings. It's going to be every fourth Tuesday of the month. Every fourth Thursday of the month. I messed that up too. And every fourth Thursday of the month, it's going to be at the same location. It's going to be the same bat time, same bat channel, same bat location. And so it's important for us to have these candid conversations where we're elaborating on those discussions, those issues with them relates to crime. And so as we have these conversations, as we continue these dialogues, we have to identify the source points that actually can move the narrative forward. And so, like I said earlier in this conversation, we talked about school board and how not just school board, but how the school actually affects what we can and cannot do within the consciousness of what we're doing, developing the next group of citizens in our American society. Then I also, I get fussed at about this all the time, but we talk about the chamber. The chamber is very important because chamber directs economics. The chamber's job is to direct green dollars, not black dollars, not white dollars, green dollars, because green dollars is what's affected by economics. White privilege or even privilege itself may dictate the terms, but when it comes down to it, it's either green dollars, and green dollars is the only thing associated to economics. Now, yes, you can have more blacks associated to the working class and not the class that actually controls the narrative. You can have more whites associated to the privileged class, and they're actually in terms controlling the narrative. But when it all said and done, whoever is the person who's creating the green is the one who economics actually sends a flow with. And so if we want better conversation, better knowledge, better understanding, better piece to the puzzle, better piece to the pie, we got to start peaking. We got to start speaking in terms of green, as they used to call it. And my thing is, I know somebody's going to be mad at me. And my thing is, somewhere down the line, we got to stop saying they got to remember us. No one has to remember nobody. If we want to be heard, then guess what you do? Grab a bullhorn and actually speak louder. Stand on top of the table. Do what you got to do to be heard. But if you just expect someone should hear you just because your skin tone is black, then I'm going to tell you something. In 2022, that's not happening no more. Unless you got a conversation that you're willing to use and be the narrator writer for it, then you're just expecting to actually be just a fan in the system. And that's it. If you really want to be heard, then do everything you can to be heard. And so with that being said, the focus on that piece right there is, if you want economics, do what it is to drive economics. I try to tell my child, and I try to teach my child. He's only 9 years old, but it's important for me to teach a 9-year-old. It's more important for you to understand how you get those shoes. Someone has to pay for those shoes. Someone has to pay for those clothes. How you eat your food. Somebody has to pay for that food. Somewhere down the line, we lost respect to these kind of conversations in our community. Somewhere down the line, we either got too privileged among ourselves, or we think that somebody's still supposed to be giving us a handout or a spoon and put it in our mouth and shove it down our throat and say, here you go, this is your hope. This is what you actually owe. And I learned from a long time ago, nobody owes you nothing. If you want something, you go out there and earn it, and you got to do what you got to do to survive. And so with those conversations, that's what I'll end with as far as that conversation is concerned, because it's so important for us to have that dialogue about crime. Our next month, the fourth Thursday next month, we will be discussing the right to vote and the importance of voting. And so that's going to be a huge meeting. Our first meeting was about crime. We had that yesterday. We had close to 30, I think it was 37 people, my last count. And for our first meeting, that was great. But our next month's topic is going to be the right to vote. And it's going to talk about the right to vote and how important it is to get out there and get out the vote. It's how important. In primaries across the state of Georgia, we vote at less than 40% in disenfranchised communities, in brown and black communities. And you know what? Someone told me the other day, see, Jay, your problem is you're privileged and you don't understand. And see, people got better things to do on election day than go out there and vote. Let me tell you something right now. You ought to be treating that day like it's a gold holiday. Whether you have to go to work or not, that should be the day you should be going to the polls and vote. And if you can't make it to the polls and vote, they have every apparatus as possible. They can do absentee ballot voting. You can do early voting. There's so much going on. And from what I heard, early voting has been down tremendous across the whole state of Georgia, including Chatham County. And so my thing is, if you want to know about your voting, get out there and vote. It's a right, it's a privilege, it's an honor, it's a duty. We owe that to our ancestors. Our ancestors didn't have the right to vote. Our ancestors who came over on the slave ship didn't have answer. They didn't have a right to vote. And so it's important for us to get out there and do what we got to do to stay focused, do what's right by our ancestors, and get out there and vote. What's going on, Don? How you doing, brother? Appreciate it. New York, shout up, stand up. LA, stand up. St. Louis, stand up. I'm guessing that's what you're saying, so I go ahead and say what you're saying, brother. And so it's so important for us to have those candid conversations about crime. And then, like I said, next month, the right to vote is what we're going to talk about. The month after that, we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to have a heated discussion about mental health and how mental health is plaguing our community, especially the African American community. How mental health is brought on by depression. How mental health is brought on by economic anxiety. How mental health is brought on by the shortage of economics. How mental health is brought on by the housing situation, or how we are displaced family in this modern day society. Yes, in slavery times, we had our household displaced, and guess what? In 2022, we still being displaced. But the only way we can fix these problems is we have to step up to the mic, we have to step up to the focus, and make sure we do everything we possibly can to fix the situation, fix the mic. And so, with that being said, every fourth Tuesday, I keep messing that up. Every fourth Thursday, we're going to actually get out there and do that. And shouts out to my brothers from the 10, Y'all in Chatham County, we got something special getting ready to come. If we can get ourselves together, it's 10 brothers here in Chatham County who have stepped up to the turnpike. The 10 of us, we're going to get together, and we're going to start making sure that everything that is oppressing us in this community is identified, called out, and put into order as far as what needs to be done in the terms of our community. Our first location that we're going to actually put our footprint on will be the Tatumville community, and we call it the Tatumville Takeover, and that's going to be April the 23rd. April the 23rd, we're going to do what is called the Tatumville Turnover. And so if you're from Chatham County, y'all know that Tatumville is one of the African American communities here in Chatham County, and what we plan to do is we heard about the complaints and problems and everything like that, the struggles, the plights and everything like that in Tatumville, and what we're going to do, the group of brothers are going to get together, and we're going to do a clean up of Tatumville. What we're going to do is we're going to drive through one street to the next, all the way through Tatumville, and we're going to identify anything that looks like, smells like, or even tastes like trash. I might have to taste some trash just to make sure that happens. But we're going to do everything we possibly can in Tatumville community to make sure we do a strong cleanup in that community. And we want to make sure we go and knock on doors and talk to old people, and if they need their house painted or we need some yards cut, we want to do everything possibly can. And so shouts out to Tatumville, because we want to make sure we make Tatumville great, because you know what? Tatumville took the strong leap early this week, and that was another thing we did this week. Tatumville took a strong leap this week, and Tatumville elected some new leaders. Now, I'm not having anything said about the old leadership that went out of office. Because my thing is, shots out to my elders who held it down strong in Tatumville, because they're very important. But what we want to do is, we had a new group of people who stepped forward, stepped up to the gate, and they're going to take over Tatumville leadership. And so my thing is, what I want to do as a celebratory piece, because I grew up in this community, Savannah, Georgia, and a lot of my brothers were part of the team. We saw that, and we're going to take advantage, and we're going to take it to a point. And so we're going to make sure we televise it. We're going to televise it, and we're going to take over Tatumville, because it's so important for us to step up as men in our community here in Chatham County to make sure our community looks great from one end to the other. And so Tatumville Takeover coming April 23rd. If you don't live in Tatumville, if you do live in Tatumville, we're inviting you to the neighborhood center out there in Tatumville Neighborhood Center that morning, probably about 8, 9 o'clock that morning. We're going to fan out. We're going to pray together. We're going to fan out. We're going to clean up the community. And then we're going to come back home and we're going to celebrate what we cleaned up and all the trash and the debris we picked up and took out. And we're going to keep Savannah beautiful. We're going to get all the women together. We're going to get all the men together. We're going to get everybody. We're going to get the mayor. We're going to ask everybody to come out. Now, I can't make nobody come out, but we're going to ask every last one of them to come out, because it is so important for us to show unity in our community. Yes, I borrowed your statement, big brother out there, my big brother out of the Richmond Hill area, Mr. Craig Butts. Yes, we're going to have unity in our community, and that's going to be what we're going. So it's going to be a Tatumville takeover coming April the 23rd. We're going to probably convene probably by 8, 9 o'clock that morning. We're going to have a prayer. We're going to fan out. We're going to go ahead and clean up some trash. That's the day after Earth Day. We might even have an Earth Day conversation. We're going to have a celebration at about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock that afternoon, and we're going to have fun amongst family. And so we want to make sure we celebrate, and we're trying to do this once a month because it's so important. And so you look at it. We got something going on that Saturday. We got something going on that Thursday. But what we want to do is we want to make sure we are involved. Somebody young told me the other day, you know what y'all do? Y'all have meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings. Y'all got more meat than a goddamn cow. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop that. We're going to stop the meetings. We're going to actually have celebrations, and we're going to get in the community, and we're going to have conversations. And when we have these discussions, we're going to write it down, and we're going to submit it on behalf of that neighborhood association to the mayor and city council if it's in the city of Savannah, to the mayor and city council if it's in Garden City, because I'm going to say in Garden City, because in May we're going to do the same exact thing in Garden City on those number streets, and that's going to be led by Ricky Lassiter. That one's going to be led by Ricky Lassiter, and the one in April is going to be led by Todd Rose, who those are 2 members of the 10, and I'm not going to give no more other members of the 10 because those are my 2 youngest members, but my 2 youngest soldiers that are going to be actually doing what we got to do. And Melinda, we're going to hit you up sometime this summer. We're going to make sure we hit Cloverdale. We're going to do voter registration. We're going to knock on doors, and we're going to make sure we turn this party out like they turn the roof off the mother, to the roof off the mother, turn the roof off the mother sucker. You know, we're going to do that like it's live in 1995, and we're going to do what we got to do. And as we grow these events, because I expect these events to grow and grow and grow as we empower my brothers and my sisters to actually move the narratives forward. We're going to make sure the communities of Savannah, Georgia are becoming better and better and better and more knowledgeable about the systems that plague us and make ourselves even more powerful than what we need to be. If we need to hit Sylvan Terrace, if we need to hit Liberty City, if we need to hit, who else I missed, Cloverdale, Carver Village, if we need to hit all our African-American communities throughout the community, we'll do so. And we're going to do the South Side too. We're going to find those points on the South Side. You know what? I might even take my brothers over to a historic tour to make sure I take them over there where I need to go take my people over to the Burroughs community over there on the backside of Georgetown. We're going to hit all these communities because you know what? They need to see positive change. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a coalition across the state of Chatham. Yeah, I see the state of Chatham. We're going to build a coalition across the state of Chatham because we know we got some elections coming up, not just elections this year, but elections in 23 and 24 right around the corner. And what we want to do is we want to make sure we have a team, an audience, a group of leaders, young, old, black, white, every other son. You know what? We're going to do everything possible to make sure we turn this thing on out. We're going to turn this mother out. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the turnout. I'm not talking about the old. I'm talking about the old turnout, not the new turnout. I'm not talking about the MC Hammer turnout. I'm talking about the old turnout. And so it's so important for us to make sure we have these candid conversations. It's so important for us to be excited about being with one another. We're going to turn this thing out like we used to do it at church revivals. That's how we're trying to do it. We want to feed. We want to feed not just the palate, but we want to feed the mind as well. And we want to make sure that the eyes are strong, not just the eyes that come out of our eyes, but the eyes that's in our head, intelligence. We want to make sure we're strong there too. And so appreciate everything everybody's doing. I'm telling y'all right now, the community is up for a change. A changeover is coming. We're going to pull a group of people together, and we're going to be strong for what we got to push forward on, and we're going to make sure we do everything we're supposed to do possible. So you know what, man, I've only got 31 minutes been used in this conversation. It is what it is. Oh yeah, it is what it is. And yes, I know the topic of discussion when you got this thing was talking about politics, and I'm going to get to the politics, but you know what, I had to make sure that I had to get all the positive streams of energy out there first. I was looking at the other day, eSplosh, which is Education Splash, which passed in 2021. I went back and did a retool of what those projects were. And I know this is year 2 as far as collection of money, or it's really going into year 2 as far as what's collection in money is concerned. And so I understand that everything we do project-wise is going to be clear-cut and concise. And what I need to do is, we got some strong elections coming up in May. Politics is politics. It is what it is. Somebody coined and used my phrase the other day, but I'm not even going to talk about that, because I told that person I love him, and I truly do mean I love every person on earth. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't tell you. So I just want that understood, and understood that it is what it is, and politics makes strange bedfellows, and you know what? Hopefully after May 24th, 2022, those people who won can compete and can have conversations with those people who lost, and we can move our narrative forward. But you know what? I heard a long time ago, a lot of times people get in their feelings when they take a loss, and they don't understand how to move forward. But I pray to God against that kind of spirit, because there's a lot of change that needs to be done. And if you didn't win in this election cycle, doesn't mean that you won't be winning in the next election cycle, or the next election cycle, therefore after. So I hope that everybody who is taking the time to be on the ballot, whether you're running for the dog catcher or whether you're running for the governor, I think that every position is very, very important. And I think we need to be treating every position as being very, very important, because that dog catcher, if that dog catcher don't catch them dogs, we'll have fleas all over the city. And so I hope that somebody is out there running for dog catcher, because we got a lot of wild dogs running loose. And so if we don't get these dogs in their cage, and we don't get we're going to have a lot of fleas going around this world. So we got another session coming up in 2023 and 2024 that's going to be smoking and out of control and off on fire. And so we need to be ready for those political opportunities and political conversations. So I promise you that this is going to be a fun time here in America. This is going to be a fun time in this world. And so as we get into these conversations about politics is a blood sport. Everybody ain't built for it, but some people don't know how to handle politics. And guess what? We're going to see who can and who can't handle the politics. We're going to see who can answer the questions, and who going to get out there and knock on 5,000 doors, or who going to send out 5,000 flyers. We're going to see a lot of different things happen. We're going to see who going to sell their soul to the devil, and we're going to see who retains their souls to the angel. And so these conversations are very, very important, that we need to start having discussions now. If you haven't even looked at to see who's on the ballot, shame on you. I'm going to say that again. If you haven't even looked at who's on the ballot, shame on you. I'm going to go ahead and give you 2 dates right now. May 24th is the primary. May 24th is a primary. You have school board elections on there. You have state rep elections on there. State rep runs every single 2 years. State rep, state senate, every 2 years. You got 9 candidates on the ballot. Some of these people don't even have to worry about opposition. You know why? Because the lines are so gerrymandered and jacked up that guess what? They're allowed to walk into these seats sometimes. And you know what? Who's that on? Shame on us. You have some areas that voted 70% and they get all the resources in the world. You have other areas that voted 50% and they get some of the resources. And you got 1 or 2 areas that voted 40% and they don't get a dang dime. but then they the first one complaining that everybody is being racially biased and racially unethical and treating them all the way under the sun the wrong way. Let me tell you something. You want to problem? Start showing up, not just showing up, but start showing up 70% voter participation from communities. You'll get elected officials to wake up and start paying close attention to you. But if you don't vote, and you got the same five people who doing all the communication for 5,000 people, then you're going to keep getting the same results. That's my biggest spiel. As I get closer to the election day, I will probably start saying some names that probably don't need to be elected in those seats. But right now, we got too much time and they can recover well, and I just don't need nobody recovering. So when I actually get this thing together and I can start looking to see who don't need to be on the ballot, then I'll make sure I get forward and let you know who don't need to be on that ballot. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm encouraging you to get out there and learn for who needs to be on that ballot and who don't need to be on that ballot. Because there are a lot of people that's on that ballot don't need to be on that ballot. But you know what? They're on that ballot because somebody else didn't step forward and run for public office. I'm gonna leave it at that, y'all. I put my other voice on. That's complimentary of Jimmy J right there. So if in essence you're not willing to step forward and challenge the system, you accept whatever challenges be brought to you by the system. And so there's going to be a couple of years, a couple of weeks, we're going to have some real candid conversations, as I like to borrow from my sister. We're going to have some candid conversations, like I like to borrow from my sister. You know what I'm saying? And if we're not willing to have those conversations, then we're willing to accept the terms that are brought before us. And so I've already talked about politics. Y'all, I love talking about politics. Y'all know I love talking about politics. It's so important for us to have these conversations about politics. You know why? Politics pretty much dictates everything there is in your life. The road infrastructure that the roads that come down your street that lead you outside into the rest of the veins of the community. That's politics. Y'all don't know that. Contracts that go into African American communities. That's politics. Y'all know that. Why things are being built in certain communities and left out in others. That's politics. Y'all know that. It's so important for us to make sure we engage these people. Because if we're not willing to engage these people will disengage from us and make decisions without us being at the table. Now, I heard the analogy being used several times in the last couple of years. You know what? If we're not at the table, we're going to be put at the table, go put on the table, put by the table, and everything under the sun. But you know what? We don't have those opportunities that we're being talked to on the table because you know what? A lot of times we don't even know the woodcrafter who designs the table. And you know what? If you're willing to sit at the kiddie table, then you're willing to accept the politics being given to you. But if you don't know how to put your big boy pants on, you gotta put your big boy pants on when you have certain conversations. Because if you're not willing to have your big boy pants on, you're just gonna be able to accept whatever you gotta give. You're gonna get what you got until you are able to make sure you have those dialogues. I'm going to tell you something right now. I got 4 or 5 people I know for a fact. If I want to know something going on the West Side, I talk to those 4 or 5 people because you know what? Those 4 or 5 people pretty much dictate the terms as far as the conversation and narrative over in those communities. And I'm not talking about elected people. I'm talking about 4 or 5 people who are who aren't politicians, but public figures in those communities who actually are the stakeholders who actually do the most of communication for those 4 or 5 people. And the reason why they do it is because I understand economics. A lot of times people can't speak forward. They can't talk because you know what? Their economics can be strained. I've seen it. I've seen politicians. Yeah, I said it. Current politicians who are in political position right now, who are in position right now, politicians who are in position right now, who have been strained by economic anxiety, saying, hey, if you don't change your political views, we're going to start taking away money from your pocket. So therefore, you better shut up and start delivering what we ask you to deliver on. Yeah, we have people like that all the time who act like that, talk like that, think like that, work like that. And then all those things, they working against the community. And so, yes, we have those issues. We have those problems. We have those ideas that don't always work well for the community, but work against the community. So I see some questions coming into every candidate should speak to the stakeholders who are the voters by telling who they are, what they are running for, and their platform is. don't assume that you have the vote. But at the same time, same token, we need as community, if we know we have been deprived, but we still got to deal with those people, because let me tell you something, Melinda, you still got to deal with the people if they come or don't come. And so my thing is, it's also upon the citizens to go out to them politicians. And when you got one or two shady politicians running for public office, then you got to see which one don't have as much shade to get you from the sun. And so sometimes you have to have those candid conversations, and you need to make sure you go out to those politicians and bring them to the table and make sure those things happen. Miss Betty Jones, Pastor Betty Jones, I salute you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. RG, I see you. All right, proud of the crazy. Will young ladies be invited to be involved in the community event of your group, the 10? Of course, the young ladies will be invited. It's just the group of 10 are a group of African American males. I don't knock any female group out there, but I get excluded from a lot of female organizations that don't allow females to actually be a part of it. But to answer your question, if you looked at the Tatumville takeover, it ain't number of women, for the exception of one man, that took over Tatumville. It was an all-female flock that took over Tatumville. And so my thing is, I'm the biggest supporter of all the young ladies in the world. And the young ladies are leading the cause. I just happen to pick the destination, and I just happen to bring the men folk who want to go ahead and bring their hands and their feet and bring their intellect to the table of Tatumville and make sure we do what we got to do to clean it up. And so I am inviting every young lady in America to come out there and help us out with this cause, because you know what? Prayer ain't just good for men. It ain't just good for black men. It's for all people in this society. And so I encourage anybody who has the hand, who has the nerve, who has the guts to actually show up and be there and do what they got to do. And no, there won't be just 10 of us. We're inviting the whole city of Savannah. We want to have a before I let you go party at the end of the term. But you know what? My group, the 10, are the group of men who are going to lead the charge as far as what needs to go on. And everybody's invited. And I don't know where y'all get the fact that I didn't invite the whole world, but everybody and their mom is invited, including Tatumville, because we want Tatumville to stand up, because you know what? I can bring the fish to you. Or I can teach you how to fish, and guess what? You'll be able to feed yourself for a lifetime. So I'm all for it that way and the other. Rebecca, is the Democratic Party planning on hosting a poll watcher orientation training on the at the Board of Elections before the primary starts? Probably not, because we don't get into the poll watchers going into the primary. But anybody who wants to be a poll watcher, you're more than welcome to join in the party to become a poll watcher. We don't really get into that stuff right here on this platform. But Rebecca, since you asked the question, anybody who wants to be a poll watcher, 912-228-2205. That's my personal cell phone number. Or you can text me at 912-401-8913. I prefer you to text me at either one of those phone numbers. And if you text me and say, hey, I'm interested in being a poll watcher, I'll make sure you get situated for the tools of opportunity to become a poll watcher in this community. So I hope I answered your question when it comes to that piece right there. I had I'm doing a term of thing where I'm going neighborhood association to neighborhood association. I'm going to community group to encourage people of color to step up, stand up, and get into the roles of running and becoming a poll watcher. I was at the neighborhood association meeting, not neighborhood association, a community group I was with, in front of about 40 African American males, older gentlemen. And we had that conversation about them stepping forward, stepping up to the gate to become poll watchers. It's so important for us to be able to be poll watchers, because you know what? Poll watchers, because it's so important for us to step forward to the gate and do that. And it was mentioned in the poll workers training today that the Republican Party was there. That's why. Okay. And so I understand that, and I'll make sure I reach out to Billy Wooten. Billy Wooten is the supervisor for the Board of Elections. I'll make sure I have that conversation to see what was transpired in that conversation. And yes, we traditionally do something separate from the rest of the groups, and poll watchers and poll workers are very important to the voter election process in this community. And we're having those conversations throughout the community. So yes, I appreciate you bringing the platform to this conversation, Rebecca. Yes, we will make sure we have that strong push to make sure we have poll watchers on behalf of the Democratic Party, and not just the Democratic Party, for the African American community, those disenfranchised communities, and all those communities in our community, to make sure that we have free, equal opportunities to keep an eye on the voting process. So I don't take away from your conversation. Rebecca is much needed, much respect, and much question. And shouts out to you for taking the time to becoming a poll worker, because that's just as important, if anything else, important to do. And with that being said, I got 15 minutes before we got to log on out of this thing. I've said a whole lot of good points. I've said a lot of conversation that we needed to say right here on this thing. Is shouts out to Julia Pierce. Julia, I commend you. Wonderful program today. Lazaretto Day out there on Tybee Island was celebrated. And basically the celebration was not to celebrate slavery, but to remind us of our history, remind us where we came from, remind us that people were picked up, talked up, scratched, and everything under the sun, and brought here on slave ships to America. And this is, we were brought here to be the servants as far as what built up America. I know it's 2022. I know we want to CRT it out, but we cannot CRT it out. We want to have this conversation to make sure we don't forget where we come from as far as the people is concerned. And so it's so important for us to make sure. So shouts out, I appreciate that. The time I spent an hour and a half, and I made sure I brought my child, because it wasn't about me learning. It was about my child learning. It was so important for him to be able to see the historical background of where we came from, and see some historical situations, reenactments, and everything like that under the sun done for us. So I appreciate that. I wanted to make sure I gave a shouts out to Tybee Island MLK Association. The Juneteenth, they talked about it. Juneteenth, you'll see me come Juneteenth. I'll make sure I make my presence known, hopefully before then, but you guaranteed to see me come Juneteenth right there on that island. Big Mike, what's going on, good sir? Good evening to you as well. Redistricting, let's talk about redistricting. So if you did not know, for those people who do not keep up with politics, redistricting is something we do after the census tract every 10 years. And pretty much we put it in the state representatives, state Senate hand, as far as drawing out the maps to make sure that we're fair and equitably balanced for the next 10 years. And that's what we're supposed to do. Now, what we try to do is we try to find nonpartisan, non-affiliated organizations to do the drawing of the maps for us. Now, when it comes to the state house, state rep, I've learned a long time, state house and state reps, the same conversation. I apologize. When it comes to the state Senate and the state reps, y'all realize that whoever's in charge of the state house, state Senate is going to make sure they draw everything to be equitably fair for themselves. And so I don't expect anything other than that to happen. And so with that conversation being brought to the table, those lines were redrawn in a funny manner, but I can deal with it because I come from that old perspective of give me what I got to get, and I'll make sure I work what I got to go. And so my thing is the lines have already been redrawn for the U.S. congressional seats. The lines have already been drawn for the state house and the state Senate. And so what I like to look at is, because those three sets of lines have been drawn, we need to make sure we run as many people against all these seats that I just spoke of right there in them two different groups of bodies. We need to make sure we run as many people as possible to those seats. Now, I prefer to have great candidates, but me personally, I take anybody who wants to run, who's willing to take a chance at running for office. And so you really, and typically in these situations, you want to run as many people as possible. So therefore, you can get some kind of base of numbers. You want to get some kind of base of numbers so you can basically have a good conversation in returns to, you want to have a good base of numbers in returns to what you need to be looking at and what you need to be focused on in future conversations. Now, what was brought to our attention was this. They traditionally do the same thing for localized government structures too. And they was trying to do the same thing for the county government, because you know what? What happened this year was school board elections. You don't have any county commission elections because that's traditionally done during the presidential year. But you did have your majority, which I call the dominant side of the school board elections, was this year, which will be on May 24th. And what that means is 5 seats will be up for election on May 24th. Those 5 seats, we wanted to see them with the new lines that were brought forth behind the 2020 census. However, with the county commission going out there asking a nonpartisan organization named the MPC to redraw the lines, we had it where the lines were cut out by 2 state representatives, Representative Jesse Petrie and Representative Ron Stevens. Now, Ron has opposition, so I want to make sure we clear. Ron has opposition. Jesse Petrie does not, or Jesse Petrie, whichever one you want to call it, does not have opposition. And so because he doesn't have opposition, he's going to be able to keep being that voice of non-reason. Not reason, but non-reason. He's going to be unreasonable voice, as I should say. Ron Stevens, he's also been mentioned in the conversation when it comes to taking apart Port Wentworth and dividing it into 2 cities is a new conversation. But the earlier conversation was they wanted to take away the charter. So they wanted to de-charter Port Wentworth. Now the conversation is now they want to split Port Wentworth. But my thing is Ron Stevens is on the ballot. He's got opposition not only in the Republican side, but now he would have it on November, but he also has opposition in May. So it's a Republican running against him too on the ballot. So he's got a double dipper. He's got a Republican candidate, and he's also got a candidate running against him on the Democratic side. And so it's so important. And thank you, Melinda, for everybody that don't know these acronyms. And your mama going to talk to me later on. MPC, for those who don't know what MPC stand for, Metropolitan Planning Commission. That is the organization that does all the planning guidelines for the Chatham County, for Chatham County and the city of Savannah. So anything dealing with planning, road infrastructure design, everything like that, zoning, rezoning, all that good stuff, that blase this, blase that, all that's tied to MPC. MPC drew the lines, and they were equitable and fair with the 0.5% of a deviation point. What that means is it was a deviation of 0.5% from the base of what it needed to be numerically speaking. It was done based on numbers and population. It wasn't done on politics. Now, you had 2 state reps come back and redraw the lines based on politics. And when the county said, well, why are you doing that? Because we wrote a resolution on behalf of the county. And the school board wrote a resolution on behalf of the school board. And those are the base of people that actually are mostly affected by that. The response was, well, y'all don't draw the lines. We draw the lines. That was a teaching moment for us out here in the community. We need to make sure we pay closer attention to these state races, because the state legislature came to us and said, we no longer will allow the county to make a pitch at what they think it needs to look like. We the boss, you gonna do what we say. So with that being said, we as the citizens who are really the boss need to make sure we take House District 161, 162, 163, 164, 165, and 166. We need to make sure we look at State Senate 1, State Senate 2, and State Senate 4. Because yes, they added a 3rd state senator in the Chatham County who does not favor the makeup of Chatham County. And so with this conversation, this is why it's important for us to make sure we show up to the ballot on November the 8th. Because if we don't show up to the ballot on November the 8th, then we're going to keep getting the same piss poor leadership we have been allowing to be festering in our community. And so I got 2 minutes left, y'all. I want to make sure we understand. I want to make sure it's clear. I want to make sure that the people in the back of the room, the people who didn't start watching the Zoom till the last 10, 15 minutes of the Zoom, the people who want to say, well, Jay Jones is selfish, Jay Jones is this, Jay Jones is that. I don't want you to say, well, Jay Jones, I want you to start saying, well, Jay Jones told us we need to keep an eye on what we need to be doing. We need to pay close attention to politics. Because you know what? If we're not paying close attention to politics, we will be the menu that's on the table. Or we will be the food on the table, because they are cutting up our communities like it ain't no problem. The maps that was supposed to be turned into us had Cloverdale, cut in half. The maps that was turned into us had Calvert Village cut into 4 parts. The maps that we talking about, they're specifically cutting up African American communities. They're specifically targeting African American communities, and they're cutting them up and dividing them up because what they want to do is they want to control the power stroke that lives within the confines of the government structure here in America. And so my thing is, this ain't a black conversation. This ain't a white conversation. America's going to change whether you like it or not. America's going to be a diluted conversation. I mean, I love my white brothers and sisters. I love my Hispanic brothers and sisters. I love my black brothers and sisters. But let me tell you something. It's time out for us not paying attention to politics. It's time up for us to start following exactly to what we need to be doing in our community. You know what? It's time out for us for voting at 40%, 50%. We need to start matching the votes across the street of privilege, making sure we're hitting the 70 percentile. Because my thing is privilege, not because. Privilege is privilege, not because they got more money than us. Privilege is privilege, not because they control the narrative. Privilege is privilege, not because they understand what's going on. Privilege is privilege because they control the politics. And he who controls the politics controls the narratives of economics, how the community grows, how the community flows, and how the community prosper. Sorry, folks. That's it. That's my time. But I hope you take the time every single Friday here at 8 o'clock to tune into this message. It is what it is, but it don't have to be like that. Take the time to learn who's running for office that's wanting to represent you, because school board elections are coming around the corner, state elections are coming around the corner, and federal elections are coming right around the corner, y'all. It's not just about the president. It's not just about the governor. It's about everybody, even those local people who want to represent you. With that being said, y'all, I got to close out because I don't want to go over my time. But you know what? Peace.